Friends, today we pay tribute to one of Tamil Nadu's greatest sons, the legendary Subramania Bharati, who died some 100 years ago at the age of 39. He was known for his heart-stirring poetry, for his role as a freedom fighter, and as a social reformer. Many memorable film songs are based on Bharati's lyrics. Our speaker, Mr. Vijayaraghavan Narasimhan, is a distinguished advocate of the High Court. He is also a prolific author and a serious student of Carnatic music. He has written many insightful articles and reviews on Carnatic music. He has studied the life and work of Subramania Bharati in detail and has written a series of anecdotal articles about Bharati. He has received several requests for a book on Subramania Bharati, which I think he is going to consider. His best-known book is perhaps a much-acclaimed work on the Constitution of India. Last year, he published a book on Sam Monekshaw's beloved armed forces. We have a special music attraction this evening. Vidyut, an engineering student and a promising 18-year-old Carnatic vocalist, will sing 4 songs of Bharati as part of Mr. Narasimhan's talk. Vidyut has been learning music for the past 14 years, including 8 years in the music school of Chitravina Ramikil. He has won prizes in contests of leading sabhas such as the Music Academy, the Mylapore Fine Arts Club, and Bombay Shanmukaranda Hall. Friends, we now look forward to a compelling talk on Bharati by Mr. Narasimhan and some soulful music by Vidyut. Over to Mr. Narasimhan and to Vidyut.
You're on mute.
Yeah, now unmuted. Good evening, friends. It is with immense pride and privilege that I accepted the invitation, though I was all the while thinking whether I should cry off after seeing the roll call of the people who have addressed this gathering. I will call it a January gathering, not an August gathering, which we always do so. Now, I made bold because I was talking on the subject of Subramania Bharati. He was anything but not courage. He was the boldest possibly in those days, born in 1882. And he made bold not only to sing and be ready to go to jail along with the other freedom fighters. So I thought I should not cry off. I should be ready enough to go on stage and talk about Bharati, which I have renewed my old relationship with him, which I lost over 50 years ago, because only in school and college, I was very close to Bharati by almost memorizing 55 of his 146 songs. For some reason, I seem to have lost everything. Now I've gone into constitution and law and insurance and so on. It seemed to have been dissipated from my mind. Anyway, we will begin the show with a good song from Vidyut for starters, so that you are not started with the kind of lecture. I'm going to, because I usually go very fast with my lectures, and also the timeline, Mr. Madhu has put me on hold and said not more than 1 hour, which is what you usually go. 10 minutes we can exceed. We will try to keep within that. So we'll start with Vidyut. Vidyut, go ahead with your first song.
ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே, ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே, இதை யாரிடம் சொல்வேனடி தோழி, ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே, இதை யாரிடம் சொல்வேனடி தோழி, நேசம் மறக்கவில்லை நெஞ்சம் எனில் நினைவு முகம் மறக்கலாமோ ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே இதை யாரிடம் சொல்வேனடி தோழி நேசம் மறக்கவில்லை நெஞ்சம் எனில் நினைவு முகம் மறக்கலாமோ கண்ணில் தெரியதொரு தோற்றம் அதில் கண்ணன் அழகு முழுதில்லை கண்ணில் தெரியதொரு தோற்றம் அதில் கண்ணன் அழகு முழுதில்லை நல்ல முகவடிவு காணில் அந்த நல்ல மலர் சிரிப்பை காணோம் ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே இதை யாரிடம் சொல்வேனடி தோழி தேனை மறந்திருக்கும் வண்டும் ஒளி சிரிப்பை மறந்து விட்ட பூவும் தேனை மறந்திருக்கும் வண்டும் ஒளி சிரிப்பை மறந்து விட்ட பூவும் வானை மறந்திருக்கும் பயிரும் இந்த வையம் முழுதும் இல்லை தோழி ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே இதை யாரிடம் சொல்வேனடி தோழி நேசம் மறக்கவில்லை நெஞ்சம் எனில் நினைவு முகம் மறக்கலாமோ கண்ணன் முகம் மறந்து போனால் இந்த கண்களிருந்த பயனும் கண்ணன் முகம் மறந்து போனால் இந்த கண்களிருந்த பயனும் வண்ணப்படமும் இல்லை கண்டாயினே வாழும் வழி என்னடி தோழி வண்ணப்படமும் இல்லை கண்டாயினே வாழும் வழி என்னடி தோழி ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே இதை யாரிடம் சொல்வேனடி தோழி நேசம் மறக்கவில்லை நெஞ்சம் எனில் நினைவு முகம் மறக்கலாமோ ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே ஆசை முகம் மறந்து போச்சே
Thank you, Vidit, for that soulful rendition. Bharatiyar's daughters, Tangammal and Sakuntala, claim that this particular song was written by Bharati in memory of his mother, Lakshmi Ammal, who he lost when he was hardly 5 years old. We all know that Bharati was born on December 11th, 1882. We all know the birthday on December 12th, that is Rajinikanth. But not many of us care to remember the birthday of Bharatiyar on December 11th, 1882. He lost his mother Lakshmi Ammal when he was hardly 5 years old. His father Chinnasamy was trying to set up a textile unit, and when the equipment was coming by ship, at that particular time, it appears to have sunk, and the whole business also sunk, and Bharatiyar went into bad ways right from the early days of his life. Now, Bharatiyar, according to my reading, I read about 163 books in the last so many days because I had to renew my old relationship I had completely lost contact after my college when I went into law. 30 years I've been practicing as a lawyer. Bharati was the last of the persons who I had occasion to read. Now, upon reading that, I can summarize that Bharatiyar basically had 5 dreams. They can be brought under the generic headings of 5 dreams. Number 1, he wanted India to be free. Number 2, he wanted all caste divisions to go. He did not want castes to go because he was very clear, castes are not going away. Caste divisions should go. Then he wanted the religious differences between all of us to sink. Then he wanted the new age woman or the woman's empowerment or a Pudumai Pen that he was talking about. The last of his dreams was, which was relatable to what the BJP leader famous called integral humanism. That is, love across all, not necessarily human beings alone, across all living beings. That is exactly what he was talking about. I was reading one of the articles about Bharatiyar's critical analysis when I read something about the science of spiritualism. It was very striking parallel to Dr. Lisa Miller, a Columbia University professor who is having a course called as Science of Spiritualism. I wondered how science and spiritualism went together. Was it an oxymoron? Was there anything anachronistic about the whole thing? No. I found a brilliant parallel in the life of Bharati and what this lady, Dr. Lisa Miller, was talking about. Somasundara Bharati was a classmate of Somasundaram, as he was then called, was a classmate of Bharati. Both of them got the name Bharati when they were about 11 years, when they were playing on the road. One Sivanyanam was going across when he saw these children playing and they were discussing in chaste Tamil. He stopped by to ask these 2 children, how is it that they were talking in chaste Tamil? Somasundaram immediately butted in and said, they were not only capable of talking in chaste Tamil, they can even compose poems. Immediately, the gentleman asked them to compose a Venba, which was a tough Venba in those days, supposed to be even for the elder grammarians who were well trained in Tamil. But Bharatiyar did it in no time. He got the name Bharati only then. Somasundaram, not to be left behind, he also composed one and he also got the name Somasundara Bharati. It was actually Somasundara Bharati who persuaded Bharati to come down from the elevated esoteric levels of his language and the prose and the poetry he was writing even in those days. His first poetry was published sometime in 11 years, but 7 years he started composing all these poems. It was Somasundara Bharati who instilled in him the need to bring down the language to the level of the commoner, to the level of the proverbial R.K. Lakshman's common man who never spoke. That is the level Bharati, he wanted Somasundara Bharati, and it happened. I believe, and I am not, let me make it very clear, I am no Tamil scholar, I am no great Bharati scholar. I have read a lot on Bharati. I am confident enough to address on Bharati, that's all. My understanding of the whole thing is, Bharati was the first poet after 1,000 years of Kamban to talk in Tamil, which was so different from the Tamil that we were all used to then. In fact, my interest in Bharati was triggered during this pandemic phase by a brilliant couplet in what we called a Pudiya Kavide, Pudu Kavide, which I happened to read. That was written by Abdur Rahman. He said, Yettayaburathil oru irattai prasavam. Niyum Pudiya Tamil. What he said was, Bharati and Pudiya Tamil were born in 1882 on December 11th to Chinnasamy and Lakshmi Amma. And thereby it began. Now I come to the dreams that Bharati had and the signs of spiritualism. What is the parallel that I found? When Bharati was young, it seems, Lakshmi Ammal died when he was 5 years old and Bharati's father married again. I forget the name. He married he married again. And that stepmother was Bharati, was even more loving than his own mother, Lakshmi Ammal, it seems. And Bharati never used to go to school regularly. He bunked classes all the time. He sat under the trees and he dreamed of a great India and dreamed about nature and nothing else. In fact, he used to, his wife Chellamal writes in her autobiography, Bharatiyar in biography of Bharatiyar, she says, Bharatiyar in Saritram. She says Bharatiyar had the habit of losing his balpam and slate. That is the chalk piece and the slate on which he used to write every day. And his stepmother somehow used to manage so that his father never got angry. Somasundaram, one of these days, found Bharati sitting under a tree. And Bharati found a little bird which was dead beside him. Bharati took that little bird. He went around searching for a small box. He found a box, somehow found a small silk cloth which was very soft. He put it inside. He put a lot of shrubs and he put the dead bird into that box. And he put it into a small lake which was running by, which is called as a Vaikal, a tributary of a river in that Etayapuram area. He put it, and Bharatiyar did it. As soon as Bharatiyar did it, I believe hundreds of birds sang from the trees as if thanking Bharatiyar for having a funeral for one of their brethren. Somasundaram was so moved, he told Bharatiyar, there is something in the language. That is where Bharatiyar got the inspiration. The initial inspiration, subsequently in Pondicherry only he wrote, Kaake Kurivigal Engal Jadi, and all that. He sang only in Pondicherry, but this was the start point. When I when I studied about the science of spirituality, this Dr. Lisa Miller had spoken about and was speaking about, I found she in one of her classes, she was telling the students about this little story involving her son Isaac. It seems Isaac saw a small carcass of a bird, little bird in the garden of their house. He came home. He made a small box, a coffin sort of a box, and then put the little bird over a silk. And then he put shrubs and a small leaf, and he set it inside a tributary of the Mississippi River itself. And she says that it was amazing that thousands of birds, which they had never seen before, were singing in unison. This, she said, is the science of spirituality I am trying to find in between the lives of human beings and birds and animals. It was enormous. It was a goosebump sort of an episode for me to think the parallel between what Bharatiyar saw in Etayapuram and Lisa Miller saw in Columbia School as a professor of science of spirituality. Even today, she's taking a class. Now I go back to Bharatiyar, who was born and bred in Etayapuram. It was at around 18. He was married. All of us know that he got married when he was 14 years. He was married to Chellama, who was only 7 years then. And on the day of marriage, it was not only Bharatiyar and Chellama who tied the knot. Bharatiyar's sister also was married, and Chellama's sister was also married. All three marriages took place. It was a marriage which was celebrated, I believe, for 5 days in Etayapuram. It became a huge celebration. And on the Unjal, it seems Bharatiyar on the spot composed a poem that he recited about praising the sky high, about the activities of his father-in-law. For whatever reason, probably to get into the good books of his bride. That's what Chellama writes humorously in her biography of Bharatiyar. He sung about it, and people were stunned at the poetic skill and the prowess that was exhibited by such a young man. And then immediately after the death of his first wife and the second marriage happened, Chinnasamy decided Bharati cannot continue his studies in Etayapuram because he was not focused, he was not concentrating. Even though his father wanted him to learn English and mathematics, Bharatiyar was focusing only on Tamil. So he put him on to Kupamal, his sister, who was in Varanasi, and Kupamal and Krishna Sivan, who is the brother-in-law who is the uncle of maternal uncle of Bharatiyar. They went to Kalahasti. In Kalahasti, for some reason, he doesn't know. Even today, in the writings of Krishna Sivan, Chellammal and Bharati do not disclose as to how they came to go to Varanasi. It seems a benefactor met them outside the Kalahasti temple, the Shiva temple there. And then he persuaded him to go to Varanasi, where there was an ashram, which required an old man. He was an old saint was going away. He was going to meet the maker in a few days, and therefore they wanted Krishna Sivan to go there so that he can continue the legacy of that sign. Exactly what happened, that Krishna Sivan and Kupammal went, Bharati joined them, and for 4 years from his 14, after his marriage, from 16, for 4 years, he was in Varanasi. He learned Sanskrit, he learned English, he learned, of course, he was proficient in Tamil. For 4 years in Allahabad University, he came first. But the most important thing that happened was, most of the time that Bharati spent in Varanasi were spent on the Varanasi Ghats. The one important aspect every writer has spoken about is the somehow how Bharati and Swami Vivekananda missed meeting each other. It seems Swami Vivekananda contemporaneously was staying for 40 days in one of the ghats. There are several ghats in Varanasi, as all of us know. Bharati was about 2 or 3 ghats away, but somehow they never met each other. And it so happened, when Bharati was finishing his course, he decided to leave. And what happened was, Bharati was very much influenced by the underprivileged classes who were struggling to come up to the level of of course, we know how anti-preservative functions, second tumbler system, and so on and so forth. Bharati was furious about all these things. The first thing he did was he removed his punal, or the cross thread he was wearing there itself. He started wearing a coat. And why that coat? He did not wear it for style or anything. He found, because of the cold in Varanasi, all the underprivileged classes and the sweepers in that area were all wearing coats. And then he also found that they were also wearing over their head a mundasi, which that is how he became a mundasi Kavinyar. And he started wearing it. Krishna Sivan really got panicky now. This man was losing all his cultural background, the legacy of a Hindu, legacy of a Brahmin. He was refusing to talk about the cultural things. He was refusing to participate in the functions that they were holding inside the ashram. So he decided it was time to send Bharati back. So Bharati came back to Ettayapuram sometime in 1903 or 1902. As soon as he came back, the Ettayapuram Maharaja, where Chinnasamy, Bharatiyar's father, was working, wanted to engage Bharati. It seems that when Chinnasamy was not around, the Ettayapuram Maharaja used to call Bharati to his chamber and ask him whether he was as proficient as his father in Tamil. And Bharati started disclosing his credentials, and the Maharaja was really shocked. So Maharaja called Chinnasamy and told him one day, "Do you know the prowess that your son has got? He is a great genius. You should develop him. We should not, Ettayapuram should not miss the opportunity. He is the Jnana Sambandhar of Ettayapuram. We should tap into that source." Chinnasamy got panicky and said, he thought there was a cynicism or satirical comment that was being made by Maharaja. And he said, "I'm so sorry if my son has been in any way impertinent in addressing the Maharaja." No, you got me all wrong. When you were not here, I called him and I asked him to dictate. Some of the greatest Tamil poets who are sitting in this particular hall, they were also praiseworthy. And I wanted to encourage him, and that is why I called him. You may not like it, you may not know it, but let me say this, you come one of these days to the chamber and hide behind one of the pillars and listen to your son. That is how Chinnasamy got exposed to the beauty that Bharatiyar was having over the Tamil language and the supremacy. But Bharatiyar found himself some sort, he was under a claustrophobic atmosphere because Ettayapuram was too small for his dreams and he wanted to fly. Luckily for him, there was a post which was offered in the Madurai school, the Sethupathi school, where there was a post for 101 days. The Tamil teacher had taken away, and that is where he went, and that is where he composed this song. Now, Vidyut, can you take over the next song that Bharatiyar composed?
பாரத தேசம் என்று பெயர் சொல்லுவார், இனி பயம் கொள்ளுவார், தூய பகை வெல்லுவார். பாரத தேசம் என்று பெயர் சொல்லுவார் நிதி பயம் கொள்ளுவார் துயர் பகை வெல்லுவார் பாரத தேசம் என்று பெயர் சொல்லுவார் நிதி பயம் கொள்ளுவார் துயர் பகை வெல்லுவார் வெள்ளி பனி மலையின் மீதுளவுவோம் அடி மேலை கடல் முழுதும் கப்பல் விடுவோம் வெள்ளி பனி மலையின் மீதுளவுவோம் அடி மேலை கடல் முழுதும் கப்பல் விடுவோம் பள்ளி தளமனைத்தும் கோயில் செய்குவோம் எங்கள் பாரத தேசம் என்று தோள் கொட்டுவோம் பள்ளி தளமனைத்தும் கோயில் செய்குவோம் எங்கள் பாரத தேசம் என்று தோள் கொட்டுவோம் பாரத தேசம் என்று பெயர் சொல்லுவார் நிடி பயம் கொள்ளுவார் துயர் பகை வெல்லுவார் மந்திரம் கற்போம் வினை தந்திரம் கற்போம் மந்திரம் கற்போம் வினை தந்திரம் கற்போம் வானயல போம் கடல் நீனையள போம் வானயள போம் கடல் நீனையள போம் சந்திரமண்டலத்தில் கண்டு தெளிவோம் சந்திரமண்டலத்தில் கண்டு தெளிவோம் சதி தரு பெருக்கும் சாஸ்திரம் கற்போம் சதி தரு பெருக்கும் சாஸ்திரம் கற்போம் பாரத தேசம் என்று பெயர் சொல்லுவார் நீடி பயம் கொள்ளுவார் துயர் பகை வெல்லுவார் பாரத தேசம் என்று பெயர் சொல்லுவார் மீடி பயம் கொள்ளுவார் துயர் பகை வெல்லுவார்
Thank you, Vidyut. We'll quickly bring Bharatiyar from Madurai to Madras, then Madras Presidency. In Madurai, in the Sethupathi school where he was working as a Tamil teacher, the salary that was paid to him was 17 rupees 50 paisa. The first salary, this is how it went. He was coming back in a cart. While he was coming, he found the cartman was not feeling well and he was running fever. Bharati found that. Immediately, he removed his coat and put it on him. It so happened that 17 rupees 50 paisa, the cover with which the salary was found in the pocket of, in that jacket, coat pocket, and therefore it went away. When he came home, he did not even remember about the salary that was paid, or he should have brought it. When Chellamal was asking about it, some of his friends, she told her friends that this man has not brought the salary. Some of the friends ran after the horse cart fellow, identified him, told him about what had happened, and begged and borrowed and took away 12 rupees out of that by giving 5 rupees 50 paisa. That is how Bharati got his first salary. Now, at that time, Bharati was not happy with the Tamil teacher post that he was doing in the school. It was exactly at that time G. Subramania Iyer who was running the Swadeshi Mitran, who also started the Hindu, which came into the hands of Kasturi Iyengar and Sons only through Subramania Iyer. Now, this Subramania Iyer summoned Bharati and he gave him a salary of 65 rupees per month. And 65 rupees those days in 1906, 1907 in Chennai, in Madras Presidency was huge. But what did Bharati do? He did not take away the 63, 65 rupees that he was having. He had two secretaries who nominated. Who those secretaries were? Very old men who had retired, who were incapable of running their households. There was difficulty in their finances. So he paid them a stipend or pension of 19 rupees each out of his pocket, out of the salary he was getting. And that is why he was not able to give Chellamal the money that he had to give. Now, Swadesamitran, when he started writing. Swadesamitran had lots of controls and he was not able to fly as high as he wanted to. So he started his own, that Mandayam Srinivasachari, M. Srinivasachari, he was running the another institution as India Magazine, where Bharatiyar started writing. The real Bharatiyar started to emanate only from that time. When he started to do that, and in 1906 and 1907, when he wrote very serious articles, and the British started to take notice of that. And the most important thing they noticed was that Bharatiyar was subscribing to a magazine called as Gallic American, which was being published, which was upholding the independence rights of the Irish against the British. That magazine, there were hardly 13 subscribers all over India, and out of them, Bharatiyar was one. The manner in which Bharatiyar gathered information, how he was able to analyze all this and write about his Swadesamitran, are all reflected from the attitude and the manner in which he collected all these things. God only knows how he got hold of Gallic American and he started to subscribe it. It was not the only magazine he was subscribing to. He was in fact interacting with many scholars in France, and that is how the Pondicherry Connect started to happen for Bharati. Then what happened, when the Britishers noted this Gallic American connection, they were really furious because the Irish independence was a huge thing in Britain, and the Irish were fighting against the British. They did not want that freedom spirit to spread to India. So they noticed Bharati and they came to arrest him. Bharati was coming down the stairs of Swadesamitran, which was somewhere in you can all recall that B.G. Panir Das has got a showroom. Next to that, there was that building, which is the Swadesamitran office, where it was being conducted. That the press was also there. Bharatiyar was coming down the stairs when the policeman met him and said, "We want to arrest you." Bharati asked, "Who you want to arrest?" They said, "The editor." Bharati said, "I am not the editor." Then they went and arrested the editor. That's how Bharati escaped and he came home. Immediately, all his friends got together and told him, "This is not Chennai. Madras presidency is not where you should be. Your role is to stir up the emotions of the Indians and the Tamilians who are lying in a slumber. And your role is not to go to jail like V.O. Chidambaram or Vanchinathan or Subramania Siva. Your role for the freedom movement is completely different." So they literally smuggled him to Pondicherry. How he left was, in the dead of night, he went to Saidapet station. He picked up a train. He went and landed in Pondicherry. He met a gentleman there and he went and parked himself in that house. That particular gentleman really got panicky that he was housing a member who the Britishers were, who was a housing householder who was being chased by the Britishers. So he was very uncomfortable with that. So Bharati was finding it very uncomfortable. But the entry of Bharati into Pondicherry became big news all over India because in 1906, in the Calcutta Congress session, Bharatiyar went along with VVS Iyer and Subramania Siva and others. It is there he met Sister Nivedita. The first question that Sister Nivedita, Irish disciple of Swami Vivekananda, she asked him a simple question: "Are you married?" Bharati said, "Yes, I am married. I've been married for 10 years. What? You have been married for a decade, and where is your wife?" He said, "It is not in our tradition or culture or orthodoxy to bring a wife along, that to such long distances." She said, "It is an insult to womanhood. The first thing you should do is, when you go back, you should go and treat your wife as an equal. You should not do that." And when he came back, exactly what Bharati did. One of these, when he was singing on the road and conducting a profession, he insisted that Chellama join him, and he put his shoulders and he put his arms over the shoulder of Chellama and he walked proudly on the road. That became big news in Kadayam, where he was then residing. And Kadayam and the entire community, the Brahmin community, ostracized Bharati. Bharati did not care about this. When he came to Pondicherry with Chellamma from Madras presidency, he continued the same activities. In fact, Bharatiyar was even more pronounced in his actions after he came to Pondicherry because upon Bharati coming there, Arvind Ghosh from Calcutta also joined, VVS Iyer also joined, and the interesting episode we should talk about is the next one. See, there is a small village next to Pondicherry called as Kuyavarpalayam. Kuyavarpalayam was very famous in those days. I don't know about the status now, where dolls used to be made from from the earth, mud pots. They call that Padumaigar. And it was made there. And Kuyavarpalayam, one of those days, one gentleman was going around selling these toys in front of the house of Bharatiyar. VVS Iyer and Bharatiyar were sitting on the parapet wall and they were chatting as usual. When they saw this man, they asked him, "Why are you trying to sell this at this late hour? Is it proper time?" The question that Bharati posed, why you are selling at this late hour, was not to put off that gentleman, but to put off his little daughter Sakuntala, who had joined him and was crying for a toy. Bharatiyar did not have the money to buy. So he was passing on the buck to the Koyavarpalayam potman, and he said, "You please pass on. This is not the time because we need to see all the toys before we buy. It is too late in the hour. It is dark." And one of the man immediately told Bharatiyar, "I am making an open invitation. Please bring your daughter also to that place. You should come there." So these two gentlemen went to that potter in Koyavarpalayam. He showed them a lot of toys. But Bharatiyar was not inspired by all that. VVS Iyer brought along a small photograph of Bharat Mata, which he had bought in Calcutta during the 1906 Congress. That Bharata Mata, then they showed it to the small potter and asked him to make toys out of that. When the potter saw that particular photograph, he cried, literally wept. That is what VVS Iyer has recorded. He cried and said, "This is not the Bharat Mata I want to make a toy of. The Bharat Mata is sans any jewels. She is just wearing a sari and a blouse and holding a flag. That's all. That is not my Bharat Mata." Bharatiyar told VVS Iyer, he is perfectly right about that. This is not the Bharat Mata we should make a toy of. Ask him to make a toy with all the jewels, and that is how I have conceived. I have seen in my dreams Bharat Mata, which I have been seeing from Etayapuram itself, and therefore let him make the toy. When he made those toys and came home, one of those days, Vanchinathan, it was during this time, 1909 to 1911, that Vanchinathan also came to Pondicherry. He saw the Bharat Mata toy and he wanted to have one of those Bharat Mata toys. And Bharatiyar could not spare one more. So he told him, "You go to Koyavarpalayam and take it from there." So he went to Koyavarpalayam, made a lovely Bharat Mata and brought it back. When he brought it back, Sakuntala thought, this Bharat Mata that Vanchinathan has made looked much better than the one she had. She wanted to lay her hands on that. But Vanchinathan said, "I am in no position to give it. The train is starting, so please allow me to leave." You know why he was in a hurry to leave? That Bharat Mata, inside that was the revolver with which Vanchinathan murdered Ash. And that is how the conspiracy picked up and came to Bharati and VVS Iyer also. And the Britishers started to put pressure on them. That is how the connection between all these people came about. And Bharatiyar actually wrote a statement in Swadeshamitranan in India condemning Vanchinathan for the dastardly assassination that he committed. Bharatiyar said, "I am an extremist in the name and fold of Balagangadhar Tilak. No issues about that. I love the Lala Lajpat Roy, who also advocated extremism. I did not like the way of Surendranath Banerjee, who was also less extremist than the other two. I did not like the ways of the other gentlemen who are trying to introduce a moderate fight against the Britishers, and they don't want to go onto the road and fight against that. But assassination of a Britisher on our soil is not what I am recommending, and I strongly condemn what Vanchinathan. Everybody says this is what saved Bharatiyar. It was not, Bharatiyar was not putting out that story to escape incarceration or being caught into the conspiracy. In fact, he went as a witness along with VVS Iyer and in that Vanchinathan. If you look at all the 14 people who are accused in that Vanchinathan fold, Bharatiyars, the community to which Bharatiyar belong, all 14 belong to that. You know who highlighted this aspect? It was Bharatidasan, who did not belong to that community. He highlighted all the 14 accused in that Vanchinathan Ash murder case would all belong to that community. That is why Bharatidasan, the word Dasan that Kanaka Subbaratinam he changed his name to Bharatidasan. Dasan, he says, I did not use it in the language of a disciple. I used it in the name of a slave. He never addressed Bharati by name or in any other characteristic except he used to call Bharati as Iyer. He used to call him, he used to address until he died. Whenever he addressed Bharatiyar, he always called him. A man who opposed to Brahminism, a man who opposed the Brahmins, a man who was said to be the precursor to all the Dravidian philosophies. He never addressed Bharati in any other name than Iyer. This Kanaka Subbaratinam was not the only one that inspired Bharati. There was one more, Kanaka Lingam. He was the better option. He was the one. See, in these, while saying that, I need to go about a little bit of trivia about Bharati. See, why Bharati was inspirational to me was not only because he was a great poet, he was an esoteric poet. He brought it down. The language in which he wrote is for a commoner. Each one of us. See, I wrote in my pieces is the words that Bharati has used for putting together in the poetry are all known to each of us. They are all used in colloquial Sendamil Nadanum Bodhilile, in Tenvandu Pai Adinile. Each one of us knows Achamille, Achamille, Achamembadillaye, Uchimidi Vanidindu Vilugindra Bodhinum, Achamember. See, all these expressions are known to us. But if any of us are given an opportunity with all these words and put it together, we will never be able to make a necklace that Bharati was able to. That is the beauty that Bharatiyar was able to do. Now, Bharatiyar, the trivia, why I liked Bharati was not because of this poetic skills also. There is a little bit of child in everybody. That is also in me, that must be in everybody else too. See, Bharatiyar's house, next to Bharatiyar's house, the neighbor, there were 3 stairs higher than Bharatiyar. Whenever Bharatiyar used to come out of his house, I believe he used to look this side and that side. Chalama has written about this. Look that and then jump to the other stairs, and then he will jump down once, twice, thrice, and count and run away. There was a child in him all the time, and he used to pick up a particular road while going on his walk. What was that road was? That road was a road on which children used to play marbles and Gittipilla or Gulli Danda, as we call it. He used to look around and then tie his mundas better and used to play with the children. And one of these days when he was doing that, I believe on the road, he went on a wrong road. When he went on a wrong road, he saw a small temple. When he saw a temple, he found it was a Desa Muttu Mariamman temple. That was the temple that he saw. He was curious about the temple. So he went into the temple and sat in a corner and started observing the person who was performing the puja and the archaka who was there. He was wearing a dhoti and he was not wearing anything about, and he was not wearing a punul or a kharas thread. He found him to be doing it in a very devoted manner, and he was reciting whatever he knew in the best possible manner. Bharatiyar was really impressed with him and called that young man and called him, what is your name? He said, my name is Kanakalingam. And he asked Kanakalingam, do you know about me? He said, I am proud that you have come. I know you are Subramania Bharati. Then Bharatiyar told him, do you know where I live? Yes, I know you live on the Dharmaraja street. You please come home. That man started shivering. I believe he really sweated. And throughout the night, he never slept because Bharatiyar belonged to the higher class. This man belonged to the entrepreneurs. Suddenly, Bharatiyar was asking Kanakalingam to come to his house. When he went to his house, I believe he was standing outside. When Chellamma came out and asked who you are, she said, I am Kanakalingam. Please tell Ayya that I have come. And when she went and told Bharatiyar that one Kanakalingam wants to call on you, can he come? Please send him upstairs. That is where Bharatiyar usually stayed. When he was asked to come upstairs, for about 10 or 15 minutes, he never came down. And Bharatiyar came down and asked why he was not coming. He said, I have come, but you have to come out and meet me. I cannot come inside your house. Bharatiya said, it is all so different in this house. Please come upstairs. This is where you belong. And he also made lime juice. With his own hand, I believe Bharatiya made lime juice and served on him. And the man was really feeling so bad. And within 1 month or so, Bharatiyar performed a Punul ceremony for Kanagalingam. And he told him, go and tell the world that you have become a Brahmin from today. Bharatiyar strongly believed you don't become a Brahmin by birth. You don't become a Brahmin by merely doing Brahmovadesam. You never become one. If you want to become a Brahmin, your ideal should be noble. That is how you become a Brahmin, and that is how Kanagalingam came into being. Now, his association with Bharatidasan also arose in a very, very interesting manner. Venu Nayakar was a physical teacher, trainer of Bharati. Yes, Bharati was doing a lot of physical exercises, and he was even going to a gym where there is a beautiful anecdote I will relate to point out what a spiritual person that Bharati was. That particular episode will brilliantly capture what kind of a spiritual person that Bharati was and how he had the magical powers of curing itself from the very songs that he was composing. Now, Kanaka Subbaratinam was the Venu Nayakar's student. One of Venu Nayakar's daughter was getting married, and Kanaka Subbaratinam was called on to stage and sing a particular song. He sang some geetams that he had come to know about very recently. So at that time, Venu Nayakar asked him, do you know who has composed all these songs? Venu Nayakar told him, the man who is standing there with the Mundasi, he is the composer of these songs. Kanaka Subbaratinam was shocked. He never knew that Bharatiyar was the person, that Bharatiyar was such a small person. He was frail. He was not even looking the kind of person he has imagined in his life, the person who could have composed such songs. He fell at his feet. And Kanaka Subbaratinam became a great friend of Bharatiyar. And only one episode with regard to Kanaka Subbaratinam that Chellama is very strikingly pointing out. What happened was Bharatiyar was very angry that he had to be in exile in Pondicherry. Somehow he wanted to leave. One of those days, one gentleman came to meet Bharati. Bharati always spoke in loud voice. He had nothing to hide. He said, I will talk on the intellectual plane. What is there for me to talk in hushed tones? But that particular day, I believe sitting upstairs, Bharati was talking in hushed tones. So Chellamal thought that something was going wrong with the dialogue that was going on between this gentleman and Bharatiyar. Then Bharatiyar came down. He dressed up in the best clothes that he had. He put up his finest mundas and he went with him. He never told him. Chellamal writes that whenever he went even to Arvindo Ghosh house or VVS Iyer's house, Bharatiyar never went away without telling me. But this was unusual. This was strange why he was going away. Bharatiyar went and he was not to be seen for the next 2 days. She sent word to all the friends. All of them were surprised why Bharatiyar had gone away like this. Then they asked Chellama, who is the person with whom he went. Then Chellama identified that gentleman. That gentleman's name is not identified even in literature. That I have checked up several sources. The name is not identified. Bharatiyar appears immediately. All of them said that fellow is a British informer. He is a spy. His habit is to catch hold of those in exile and go and drop them out of the French territory so that the British can lay their hands on him. As he was going, it seems that Bharatiyar's friend, Durasamy Iyer, a lawyer, was coming along in a car and he saw Bharati and stopped him. And he stopped Bharati and asked him where he was going. He said, I am going to cross the border because I believe the warrant that was out on me is no longer valid. So I want to go back to my Punya Bhumi or my birthplace. That man said, what are you meaning? What are you saying? I am a lawyer. I am practicing in courts. I know the warrant is still out. This is not the time for you to go. I'll take you some other time. He brought Bharati back. You know, when Bharati came back, 2 days later, he came in a car and they were all very happy to see Bharati back. And when Bharati was back, and that gentleman who took Bharati away also came back the next day. And you know, Bharati sang that very famous song, Pagaivanukku Arulvai Nenje. That Bharati composed upon seeing that man. Even if he is my enemy, I have to be very helpful to him. I should not shun him. and all that. Bharati, he was such a great man. That is why he believed, see, he believed in human beings and all that. The next occasion when Bharati ran away, again he had gone missing. Nobody was able to see where Bharati had gone. Chellamma told Kanaga Subbaratnam or Bharatidasan, as he came later to be known as, where he is. Bharatidasan went and caught hold of Bharati and brought him. He said, where did you go? And we all were searching him all over the place. Where did you go? I went to the only place he would have gone. I know he would have gone to the railway station. Because if he says something, he is going to deliver on that promise. The only way he can go to Chennai was by a train that was available. So I went to the railway station. I found him there. I told him so many things about it. I brought him back to that. When he was coming back, this character, Amma Kandu, who was Chellamma's woman Friday, very important lady, that Amma Kandu character can be really glorified, and brilliant pieces, or even we can make a drama out of that lady. That Amma Kandu was a brilliant protector that Chellamma had, and Bharati totally believed in her. That whenever Bharati was away, he used to ask Amma Kandu to take care of Chellamma in the night. That Amma Kandu used to lie on the Vasapadi. That is where she will put her head and she will be sleeping. One day Bharati was coming late. It seems it was night and the lights were not on. And as he came in, she refused to allow even Bharati inside. Bharati was really happy about that and told Amma Kandu. When Kanaga Subbaratnam or Bharatidasan was bringing back Bharatiyar, this Amma Kandu was coming in search, had a small pocket, a small bag with her. In that bag, she had a few bananas, she had a few fruits that she had to feed Bharati, knowing fully well that he would be hungry for about 8 hours he was away. The kind of character. Now, Bharatiyar was not only stopped from having the money that was being sent, all money orders were stopped. All postal articles which were seized by the French police at the instigation of British. The small vendors on the road, they were also prevented from selling goods to Bharatiyar household. One of these days, Amma Kandu came to know about that. She went and confronted them. She went and asked, and that is in chaste Tamil, in vernacular Tamil, I could speak that language, the Chennai language. That would be a brilliant exposition. That Amma Kandu took hold of the small vendors and told them, are you obeying the British or should you obey the Indian citizens? Is Bharatiyar a foreigner? Do you need, are they paying you what you are being paid? Are they going to give you the moksha that Bharati can give in his song? She really took them on and tore them to pieces. With the result, all of them confronted the British and told the police station, if you have to prevent us from selling goods to the Amma Kandu and Chellamma household, we will all boycott everything that is happening in and around, and we are ready to be incarcerated along with the entire household. The policemen had to go back, and the French administration revoked the circular by which all these orders had been placed. Now I go back to the Kanaga Subbaratnam episode and how Bharatidasan became the greatest talent that Bharatiyar encouraged throughout. Bharatiyar used to call him as Kaviraya, and Bharatidasan and Bharatiyar was called as Iyer. The relationship between them was absolutely amazing. There is one episode with regard to VVS Iyer, which Chellamma and even Bharatidasan alludes to. That really shows the lengths and the depths to which the Britishers and the French were conspired to catch hold of Bharati, even in exile. One of those days, VVS Iyer sent word to Bharati to come to his house. Whenever VVS Iyer called Bharati to the household, it must be an urgent business, so he came running. And as soon as he came into VVS Iyer's house, Vavesu Iyer, and Vavesu Iyer, I should mention about this fact, being a lawyer myself, I did not know that Vavesu Iyer was a great barrister, and he went to Lincoln's Inn in England, and he got his barrister degree, and he was about to be conferred with the degree when he was told that he should subscribe to the promise that he will go by the principles of the monarch. He refused to do that and did not take the barrister degree. And that is how he came to meet Veer Savarkar in the Indian embassy in London. And they became great friends. And when VVS Iyer died when he was only 44 years, we all should know that VVS Iyer tried to save his daughter Subhadra in the Papanasam river, and both of them were drowned. While Bharatiyar died at 39, VVS Iyer died at 44 years. So Bharatiyar rushed to VVS Iyer's house and VVS Iyer was smiling. When he was smiling, Bharatiyar said, "Did you call me to see you are smiling, Bisar? I have not come here. Please tell me, be serious about this." He took him to the rear portion of the house. In the rear portion, VVS Iyer's wife, Bhagya Lakshmi, was waiting with a small kodam, and there was a small bucket that was placed next to the deep well that was in their backyard. And in that, they found a small vessel, a brass vessel which was kept there, with a small moody or a cover that was placed on top of it. VVS Iyer called Bharatiyar and told him, "Have a look at inside it." Then they looked inside. There was a plastic cover. Inside that plastic cover, there was lot of seditious and incendiary material which was placed there, and the policemen, the French police, were to come and catch VVS Iyer with all these incendiary material and put him behind bars. Immediately, what do? VVS Iyer, Bharatiyar, and a few others who joined them, Kovalai Kannan and M. Srinivasacharya, all of them go to the French administration. They make a mahazar out of all what was found and they gave it to the French police station, and the French recorded it, and they themselves did not know that their police was under the bribery scheme or the surreptitious activities of the British. Now it so happened that after this had happened on a Wednesday, on Thursday morning, early morning, the French police station, the police people who are not having information about that come into VVS Iyer's house. And they come into VVS Iyer's house, and VVS is happy to open the gate and tell him, "You can go and have sambar rasatlala kayo uttu patano." They even put their hands inside sambar and rasam vessel and tried to find out whether this material was there. Then they went. All of them searched and nothing incriminating was found. Then one policeman said, "I find a deep well inside, so we need to go and look at that also." You know what the response of VVS Iyer was? Romba sandosham. நாங்க 20 வருஷமா 10 வருஷமா இந்த கனரை தூர் வாரணும்னு வெயிட் பண்ணிட்டு இருக்கோம். நீங்க சமயத்துல எங்க கிட்ட அதுக்கு உண்டான காசு இல்ல, தயவு செய்து தூர் வாரி கிளீன் பண்ணிட்டு போங்க, நாங்க உங்களுக்கு ரொம்ப கடன்பட்டவர்களா இருப்போம். They said, "You come and clean the vessel. We have not had find the money to do it. Please be my guest, do it." The men did some torch and other things they found, and they found nothing, and they did not oblige. They said, "VVS Iyer, even this help we will not do." They walked away. This kind of pressure that Bharatiyar and others were under. And now let me have a small interlude with Vidyut. Come with the third song, please.
நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்தே, நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்தே, அதை நலங்கெட புழுதியில் எறிவதுண்டோ. நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்தே, அதை நலங்கெட புழுதியில் எறிவதுண்டோ. சொல்லடி சிவசக்தி, சொல்லடி சிவசக்தி, ஏனே சுடர்மிக அறிவுடன் படைத்து விட்டாய். சொல்லடி சிவசக்தி, ஏனே சுடர்மிக அறிவுடன் படைத்து விட்டாய். நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்து அதை நலம் கெட பொழுதியில் எறிவதுண்டோ. சொல்லடி சிவசக்தி, ஏனே சுடர்மிக அறிவுடன் படைத்து விட்டாய். நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்து அதை நலம் கெட பொழுதியில் எரிவதுண்டோ வல்லமை தாராயோ இந்த மாநிலம் பயனுற வாழ்வதற்கே வல்லமை தாராயோ இந்த மாநிலம் பயனுற வாழ்வதற்கே சொல்லடி சிவசக்தி நீலம் சுமையன வாழ்ந்திட பொறிகுவையோ சொல்லடி சிவசக்தி நீலம் சுமையன வாழ்ந்திட பொறிகுவையோ நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்தே அதை நலம் கெட புழுதியில் எரிவதுண்டோ சொல்லடி சிவசக்தி ஏனை சுடர்மிக அறிவுடன் படைத்து விட்டாய் நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்தே அதை நலம் கெட பொழுதில் எரிவதுண்டோ விசையுறு பந்தினை போல் உள்ளம் வேண்டியபடி செல்லும் அகம் கேட்டேன் விசையுறு பந்தினை போல் உள்ளம் வேண்டியபடி செல்லும் உடல் கேட்டேன் நசையுற மனம் கேட்டேன் நேசம் நவமென சுடர் தரும் உயிர் கேட்டேன் நசையற மனம் கேட்டேன் நேசம் நவமென சுடர் தரும் உயிர் கேட்டேன் நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்தேன் அதை நலம் கெட பொழுதில் எரிவதுண்டோ தசையினை தீச்சுடினும் சிவ சக்தியை பாடும் நல் அகம் கேட்டேன் தசையினை தீச்சுடினும் சிவ சக்தியை பாடும் நல் அகம் கேட்டேன் அசைவர மதி கேட்டேன் இவை அருள்வதில் உனக்கெடும் தடையல்லதோ அசைவர மதி கேட்டேன் இவை அருள்வதில் உனக்கெதும் தடை உள்ளதோ நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்தேன் அதை நலம் கெட புழுதியில் எரிவதுண்டோ சொல்லடி சிவசக்தி என்னை சுடர்மிக அறிவுடன் படைத்து விட்டாய் நல்லதோர் வீணை செய்தேன் அதை நலம் கெட பொழுதில் எரிவதுண்டோ சொல்லடி சிவசக்தி ஆ
Bharatiyar lived in Pondicherry for about 10 years. That was the most productive and fruitful period of his entire 39 years. He wrote his Panjali Sabadam there. How he came to write Panjali Sabadam is I will make it very, very brief from now on. On Dharmaraja Street itself, there was a temple, which was the temple, Dharmaraja temple. He took his daughter Sakuntala inside the temple. He showed all the statuettes there. And one of them was Panchali. She asked him who it was and he told Panchali. The moment he uttered the word Panchali, Bharatiyar went into a zone, he went into a trance. Chellamma had told both the girls that whenever Bharatiyar went into such behavior or conduct, they should keep quiet. Bharatiyar pulled his daughter out. He took her by her hand and came home and immediately started writing the first chapter of Panchali Sapadam. That is why Panchali Sapadam was written. Kuil Patu, how did he write? One day he went on the wrong road and went into a garden. And when he sat under a tree and a maina or a quail, a cuckoo started singing, he started writing the Kuil Patu. And then how did he write the Kannan Patu? His best friend Kolai Kannan was there. That is how he started. Engirindo Vandan, Idechadi Nan Endran. That sort of song he put together only with such. See, the most important thing about Bharatiyar is we all superficially read it. It refers to the Asai Mugam Undru, Asai Mugam Marandu Boche. We all think he sang about Kannan. Actually, he sang about Chellamma. There are 3 songs. The Kannamma party when he wrote, I believe he wrote it in name of Chellamma, his wife, after the promise he gave to sister Nivedita. But Chellamma's brother Appadurai did not like a Brahmin housewife's girl, lady's name being propagated by her husband as if a great lover and all, and songs being sung. So Bharatiyar was called himself a Shelly Dasan. After the great P.B. Shelley, he named himself a Shelly Dasan. Appadurai removed the name Chellamma and inserted Kannamma in respect of 3 songs. This Tangammal and Sakuntala, daughters of Bharatiyar herself, confirm. The proudest period, but despite that, let us all remember that 50% of Bharatiyar's works were printed only after his death in 1921. And it was left to Chellamma for starting a Bharati Prasaralayam and trying to sell. You know how much all the songs of Bharatiyar were sold to? 400 rupees to A.V. Meyyappa Chettiar. And then A.V. Meyyappa Chettiar gave it away free to the government after Bharatiyar's all his songs and poetry. He was the first poet whose songs were whose works were completely nationalized. But it is really tragic that we did not see. For instance, let us take the take of Tagore. I have discussed it in my work also. Tagore got his Nobel. Tagore's all his works went to Shanti Niketan. The Copyright Act only gives at that time only gave 50 years. Shanti Niketan fought and extended the copyright period by another 10 years so that they can have complete control over Tagore's work. The interesting episode involving Tagore has to be said. It is an apocryphal story. I'm not too sure if it happened or Bharatiyar said it the way it happened. In 1919, when Tagore came to Chennai, had a tour of South, including Kerala, he went to Tamukkam Maidanam in Madurai. I believe Bharatiyar, for some reason, did not cross each other. They never met each other. But Bharatiyar appears to have said, told Tagore that Tagore Avargale, let us have a debate in the Victoria Hall in Calcutta on any issue of your choice on national issue with regard to India's freedom. Let us both assemble the audience of your choice. Let us assemble. You keep the Nobel Prize on the table. Let us see who gets more applause and who gets a vociferous applause. And whoever wins shall get the Nobel and I will get it from you. This is the confidence with which Bharatiyar approached his entire life. Even the Sivasakti songs that Vidyut sang, the historians have said that he was virtually challenging Sivasakti and telling her, you having given me so much of knowledge, how dare you not give me the opportunities that I deserve to go where I want to go. Till 1918, he was in exile. Then in 1918, 10 years down the line, he decided that it was time to make a move and come to Madras presidency. Rangasamy Iyengar, who was then involved with the Sudeshna Mission, decided that they will take a chance. C.P. Ramasamy Iyer, the advocate, offered his services to Bharatiyar. Then they went and met the police. They went all that. And Bharatiyar made his move with the entire family to Kadalur. As soon as he crossed Pondicherry into Kadalur, he was arrested and kept in jail. Now, thereafter, there is an interesting story. There is a letter that Bharatiyar has written. Any lawyer worth his salt, any literature should also go into that letter. That letter will seemingly suggest that Bharatiyar was apologizing for all the conduct and he will not misbehave and he will keep himself out of harm's way by not talking against the Britishers, but be in a place, he will be in a place as per the license given. That is how the letter is worded. But the hidden meaning is clearly the opposite of what Bharatiyar wants. Rangasamy Iyengar says they had a debate for about 3 weeks over this letter, these wordings, and Bharatiyar was asked to sign on the dotted line. Bharatiyar said the worst that will happen if I give this letter is I may not be, if they don't like the wording, they will not release me from the jail. It doesn't matter. But 24 days subsequently, the Deputy Inspector General of Police met Bharatiyar, spoke to him, and he was released. And then he moved on and he came and he started writing the better phase of his life also in Madras Presidency, and Kadayam happened after that. This is after 1918 and 1990. The interesting episode when he met Gandhi must be told. When he met Gandhi, he went to Gandhi was staying in Rajaji's house. In somewhere in that, I know that Satyamurthi's house, next to that, M.S. Subbulakshmi also had that garden. Rajaji's house, Gandhi was staying. Gandhi was staying, and Mahadev Desai was his secretary. And Rajaji, Satyamurthy, Vara, V. Ramalingam, who was Ramanuja Iyengar, who was also written about Ramasamy Iyengar, who has written extensively about Bharati, were all about Bharati. They were all standing. When Bharati entered the scene, Vara was asked to keep out any visitor, but he could not stop Bharatiyar because Bharatiyar was Bharatiyar. So Bharatiyar took his own license, came in. He went in, sat next to Gandhi, and asked Gandhi, Mr. Gandhi, today at 5:30, I have organized a meeting in celebration of Bharat Mata on the Triplicane beach. Are you willing to come and address the gathering which I will be addressing alongside you? Gandhi turned to Mahadev Desai and told him, Mahadev, can we accommodate this gentleman? Mahadev said, no, we cannot do that because today 5:30 we have some other appointment. Then Gandhi apologized and said, could you have your program for tomorrow? Bharatiyar said, I can have it tomorrow, but my Bharati Mata is not willing to wait for 24 hours. See you, good day, have a nice work, have a nice meeting, and Bharatiyar walked out. And as Bharatiyar walked out, Gandhi asked all of them as to who this gentleman was who just barged in without being invited, without asking for permission and all. Satyamurthy, I believe, afterwards said that he was not willing to tell Gandhi because he felt that Bharatiyar had insulted the entire audience and Gandhi by coming and taking his seat next to Gandhi. Rajaji was keeping quiet and the rest of them were also keeping quiet. Rajaji then quietly said, this man is the Desiya Kavi or national poet. We address him in Tamil Nadu. He is a Mahakavi. He is a wonderful poet who sings about Bharat Mata and nobody else in the highest possible tones. Gandhi immediately said, I can see greatness in the eye of the man. This man is a treasure. Please protect him. I do not know if Tamil Nadu knows the Madras presidency knows the value of this gentleman. I think what Gandhi said, we have not carried forward. We never knew the value of Bharatiyar. We have forsaken all the interest of Bharatiyar. See, in the context of Pondicherry, I forgot to introduce the spiritual aspect that I talked about. I am just remembering that. I told you about Venu Nayakar, the physical trainer. Bharatiyar used to go to a gym. Yes, Bharatiyar attended the gym very religiously every day at 5:30. One day when Bharatiyar was attending the gym, he found a young man standing leaning across the wall and he saw something in him. Bharatiyar had that innate ability, innate knack to see something different in everybody. He saw something different in the young man and went and accosted him and went and asked him why he was not doing exercises like the others. That man never spoke. He completely kept quiet and Bharatiyar was very curious. Then he inquired about everybody and they all said, Avan oru Paityakaran. He is a mad man. He is a pittan. And therefore, nobody talks to him, but he doesn't cause any harm. So we don't mind. He comes there, stands until the gym is open and he walks away. Bharatiyar said, I would like to meet their parents. And he went away. The parents brought that young man to Bharati's house and they told Bharatiyar, you wanted to meet him. Yes, I wanted to meet him. There is something about him. What happened? The parents said he was all right for about a year back, but suddenly something appears to have happened. And from then on, he is not he is not talking at all, he is not responding, and he is behaving like a madman, like everybody else. We are wounded, we are hurt, but we can't help it. That is how society treats such people. What can we do about it? Bharatiya said, leave him here for 6 months and go away. Bharatiyar kept him in his house, and every day religiously Bharatiyar took him, walked along with him to the beach. And Kolai Kannan, who was Bharatiyar's sort of secretary, surreptitiously went after Bharati one day to listen to what they were speaking. It seemed Bharatiyar was not speaking anything. He was reciting Om Shakti slokas to that man. He was reciting Bhagavad Gita. He was reciting Vedas and Upanishads. And that man was not in any position to understand everything. When Kolai Kannan, Bharatiyar came back, Kolai Kannan told him about this, and Bharatiyar said, you may not understand anything, but I know something is happening inside that man. You please what? Please wait. My Parasakti will do the trick for me. 2 months down the line, that man turned completely normal, and the parents came back and took him. And Bharatiyar was praised sky high. He has written about it in the Suyasa Hriday, or the autobiography which he has written in verse. But it is tucked away in such a language that nobody can understand except people who have followed Bharati very closely. That is the greatness of Bharati. We come back to 1919. In 1919, after he wrote about all these things, and and the Britishers wanted to arrest him and all that, you know the great episode about the elephant that kicked him. But I cannot close without alluding to this, that Kulachami meeting that Bharati had. Bharati one day was walking on the road in Pondicherry when he met an old saint who was wearing decrepit clothes. He was not having anything above. He was having an old and a very saggy old bag. Nobody knows what was inside, and a stick. And when he was walking on the road, children used to make fun of him. And that gentleman used to play only with the dogs, never used to play with people. Bharati saw him one day at 12 noon. He met him. He caught hold of him with his firm grip and told him, I am not leaving you unless you show me God. That is what Bharati told that man. You have to show me God. You know, Bharati was one person, like the Alvars and Nayanmars who had a visit, who saw God, who had a visit. In Bharati, when he was 9 years old, inside a Shiva temple, on an Arudra day, he saw a young girl who went away for a fleeting moment. She went missing. Then she came back with a greasy paint and put it like a tilak on the face of Bharati. And she said, you are a changed man from today. It seems Bharati never met that lady. So there are accounts which say she was still in Etayapuram and somebody met her when she was in the 90s. But everybody conclusively says she was never met, because it was Parasakti who should have met Bharatiyar and infested and given him the benefit of all her love and affection. And that is how she came. And now Bharatiyar to Kulachami, he gets hold of Kulachami's hands and tells him, you must show me God. Kulachami says, no, you please leave me alone. I'm not here to do all these things. I can't do. Starts to run away. And Bharatiyar runs after him. And he gets into a dilapidated building with an old decrepit well inside the house. And there is nobody residing there. He goes inside. It was a shiny day. It was a mid-afternoon when the sun was shining. Bharatiyar meets him, and Bharatiyar asks him, I am not letting you out of this place unless you show me God today. This Bharatiyar alludes to what Vivekananda told Ramakrishna Paramahamsa. Have you seen God? That was what Vivekananda was in search. Paramahamsa said, yes, I have seen God. And Vivekananda was shown God by Paramahamsa, which Vivekananda has recorded. Similarly, Bharatiyar says, I want to see God, you must show me. Then the Kulachami says, Kulachami goes near the well and he stands there. He insists, you are not going to allow me. He smiles. Then he looks at the old compound wall, which is completely broken, and he shows him by body language, can you see what you are seeing? Bharatiyar looks at the compound wall, which is completely broken, only up to the lower part, and Bharati says, yes, I now see it. Then he looks up at the sun, and Kulachami says, now can you see the sun? Bharatiyar looks at the sun and says, yes, I see the sun and the brightness with which it is shining. Then he calls Bharatiyar with his eyes next to the well. And in the well, he asked Bharatiyar to see inside. He looks at the reflection of the sun in the well, in the water. And he asks Bharatiyar, can you see it? Yes, Bharatiyar says. Now that is God. He communicates by his eyes that this is God and walks away. In his autobiography, Bharatiyar writes, exactly, he says, this is how God was exposed to me, which I got exposed when I was 9 years in that Shiva temple. Today I saw God again. What is it? The broken compound wall. That is all our life is all about. We all think everything is Saswadam. We are all immortal. We will live a no. We will all be broken like the compound wall one day. And we should all remember that our life is transitory. It is ephemeral. And we better remember that. Then he looked at the sun. And the sun is the God, the bright, shiny God. All above, we can never reach it. We can never touch it. But we can still get the God into our hearts by looking down in the reflection in the well, by bringing the sun into our hearts. And that is there our Atman is. He writes beautifully about that philosophy, which is so simply. In fact, he concludes this line by saying, Pesuvadil payanillai. Exactly what Ramana Maharishi also said. Eloquence is in silence. Pesuvadil payanillai. And now with this, and then you come to 1921. I will quickly close before I will allow Vidyut to sing the last of the song, which captures what Bharatiyar's life was all about. Now you come to the elephant of the Parthasarathi Kovel, elephant, which is supposed to have killed. When Bharatiyar was in the hospital, Rayapata hospital, for about 6 hours, it was Kovalai Kannan who rushed him to the hospital. When Bharatiyar was unconscious and he woke up, he asked Kovalai Kannan, why am I here? Kovalai Kannan told Bharatiyar, you were kicked by the elephant because you went to the elephant and told him, Gajaraja, Nan Kaviraja Vandirkiren. You also remember the episode in Trivandrum Zoo when he met the Singham and said, Singaraja, Kaviraja, Bharati Vandirkiren, and put his hand inside the cage. And it was Chellamma who pulled it out and said, you may not know, the lion may not know all these things. At least let there be some sense into you. And she pulled it. This is Bharati Raja. Kovalai Kannan told him, you went to elephant and said, Gajaraja, Kaviraja, Vandirkiren. It kicked you. Bharati said, you are totally wrong. The elephant did not kick me. I put it on a small bamboo plate, and the bamboo plate was kicked by the elephant because it could not pick the plantain properly. And in the breeze that followed, I fell down. The elephant knew that I was Kaviraja. I was Mahakavi, so it did not stamp on me. Therefore, when you also went to rescue, it did not stamp on you. The elephant also knows I am a Mahakavi. You know that you come to the last stage. This happened sometime in July 1921. In September 11, 1921, he died. It is September 11 or 12 because he appears to have died at 2 a.m. and not before midnight. And so there is people have now corrected and said it could be September 12. Before he died, Chellamma writes like this. Before he died, a few hours before he died, I believe Dr. Janaki Ram on TP Coil Street was asked to come and give him medicine. He refused to take it, saying that my time has come. I am going to meet the maker. That no amount of medicine will save me. I know when I came. I know when I will go. Please, you take care of you. All this he communicated with his eyes, like Kulachami had done. Now, Bharatiyar, before he died, 2 hours before he died, he asked Chellamma to bring the best clothes he had, the best dhoti, the best coat, the best mundas, and a small pin that he was wearing. Chellamma writes, even on that, Chellamma says, we were poor, we were in poverty, penury always with us. But people used to say he had a pin to close the coat pocket which was torn. No, it was not like that. He wore that pin as a carnation given by Bharat Mata. How many of us know this trivia? What a brilliant message that Chellamma is communicating by that. She said he wore the best dress because he told, when I go and meet my maker, I should meet him in the best dress because he wrote. He is the man who wrote. We are all afraid of death, everybody. But he is the man who said, Kala, unnai naan kaal poosana madikkiren, arige vada, satre unnai medikkiren. He said, Yama, please come here. I will stamp on you and I am not afraid of you. This is how he wrote and this is how he is recorded also. And that is the last song they sung. When he had his funeral, there were not more than 14 people who were in the funeral, it seems. Not more than 14. There are accounts like Nellayapar says there may have been about 20. And there were eulogies paid on the last day. It was Dorasamy Iyer. I am proud to say, one from my community, an advocate community, not the most chivalrous, not the most generous always. He was the one who paid for the funeral expenses of Bharati. Dorasamy Iyer, the advocate. And when Bharati died on the day, only 20 people attended. It doesn't matter because Bharati told Parasakti, he said, Jesus Christ was crucified. Lord Krishna, after the Mahabharata war, died by an arrow from somebody who was letting it, thinking that it was a deer that was lying. And then Rama fell into the Sarayu and killed himself. But me, I will live always like Lord Krishna in his Srimad Bhagavatam. Inside the passage, I have become an Amaran. I am an immortal soul in my being. The confidence of the man, the confidence of the poet. I think 1 hour is too small. You may not, it may be very difficult to accommodate. We can speak about him for years together. My only regret is that Bharati, during his lifetime, whatever recognition he did not get, we think he may have gained it 100 years later. For what? A villager in Etayapuram says this. He says, only every year during the birthday celebrations or the death anniversary of Bharati, all these politicians and figures will come and assemble to show their faces as if they are all disciples and devoted persons of Bharati. No way. They are all coming there to project their image. Bharati happens to be a character who is helping them to project themselves. And that is the tragedy that we should avoid. Bharati should be remembered. Bharati said, I am not myself. I am not Bharati. I am my poems. Please read my poems. There I live. And that is my prayer to each one of you who may be to carry the message that please buy the books of Bharati's Kavidaigal. Whether you read it or not, let it be in your prayer, on your prayer mantle. You would have done well, not only by Tamil language, but by Bharati, but by Bharat Mata also. I would now request Vidyut to conclude with this song.
தொன்று நிகழ்ந்ததனை துமுனந்திடும் சூழ்களை வானர்களும் தொன்று நிகழ்ந்ததனை துமுனந்திடும் சூழ்களை வானர்களும் இவள் என்று பிறந்தவள் என்றுணராத இயல்பினளாம் எங்கள் தாய் இவள் என்று பிறந்தவள் என்றுணராத இயல்பினளாம் எங்கள் தாய் 30 கோடி முகமுடையாள் உயிர் மொயம்புற ஒன்றுடையாள் 30 கோடி முகமுடையாள் உயிர் மொயம்புற ஒன்றுடையாள் செப்பு மொழி 18 எனில் சிந்தனை ஒன்றுடையாள் இவள் செப்பு மொழி 18 எனில் சிந்தனை ஒன்றுடையாள் நாவினில் வேதமுடையவள் கையில் நலம் திகழ்வாள் உடையாள் நாவினில் வேதமுடையவள் கையில் நலம் திகழ்வாள் உடையாள் தன்னை மேலே நிற்கின்றருள் செய்பவள் தீயரை வீற்றிடு தோளுடையாள் தன்னை மேலே நிற்கின்றருள் செய்பவர் தீயதை வீற்றிடு தோளுடையாள் எங்கள் தாய் எங்கள் தாய் எங்கள் தாய் எங்கள் தாய்
Thank you, Vijayaraghavan sir. We were all spellbound, and the way you spoke, the kind of emotion that you have held, your love and respect for